Raise your fists together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker, National Education Policy Director for Push for Excellence. And on behalf of the Rainbow Push Coalition, we'd like to thank you very much for giving of your gift of time and joining us here on our Saturday morning forum. We'd like to thank Word Network for bringing you to us and us to you. And yet we recognize there are many of you that are watching us right now on Facebook Live. If you're doing so, we'd like to ask that you like our page. And for the many of you that are watching us right now on YouTube Live, we'd like to ask that you subscribe to our page so that you may gain immediate access to all of the content that we have in store for you. And speaking of content, we can't do this without you. We need your financial support, and we've made it really easy for you to give. In fact, you can choose from one of 3 different ways. You can simply pick up that cell phone of yours right now and hold it to the QR code on your screen and give right on the spot. Or you can simply take that same cell phone and text the word PUSH to 41444. Text PUSH to 41444. You can even go to our website at rainbowpush.org and simply click on the donate button. Now, whatever you do, don't move an inch. Don't touch that dial. Stay right there. We'll be right back because the push is on.
Are you a rising sophomore, junior, or senior in high school? Well, we're excited. We're doing an HBCU tour. Yes, Push Excel. And if you haven't been on one of our tours, you have not been on a historically Black college or university tour. We don't only go to colleges. We go to corporate sites as well as introduce you to cultural sites. So we want your families to be involved. We want your communities to be involved. And this is like a tour like you have never visited and gone on before. Please visit us at www.pushexcel.org for more information. And guess what? Calling all Greeks, calling all HBCU Tour Push Excel Rainbow Push alum, calling our community and clergy. We want you to be a part of this process. We are sending these students off right. So please go on the website, give us a call at Rainbow Push, find out what's going on because you do not want to miss this tour. When is it? It is July 22nd through 29th. So next month, make sure that you get on the bus. But call us soon. There are workshops that you don't want to miss.
This is National Gun Violence Awareness Weekend, and wear orange in Chicago as we commemorate the life of a beautiful sister by the name of Hadia Pendleton. We're here today because our communities are caught in the captivity of cycles of victimization, trauma, and retaliatory violence. Gun violence is also the leading cause of death for Black children, in large part because of the severe burden of gun homicides on our population. Black Americans die from gun violence at nearly 3 times that of the white Americans, and on average, more than 12,000 Black people die from gun violence every year. Homicide has been the leading cause of death for Black men ages 15 to 44. And more than 86% of homicides in Black communities involve firearms. Rainbow Push Coalition proposes in the work and legacy of Reverend Jackson tighter gun policies at federal, state, and local levels. We also advocate and push for a ramped-up investment for strategies in the areas of de-escalation and stopping future violence. Cities, states, and federal government should invest in promising community violence intervention strategies and dedicate funding to eradicating and eliminating violence of all kinds. We know on a weekend like this, emotional support services for trauma, acute stress and PTSD, community-based self-care support systems must be put in place. Reverend Jackson has pulled together these leaders to collectively and collaboratively put together a community covenant with pastors, parents, popular individuals of influence in our culture to come away with a collective covenant that will address this not for the short term but for the long term.
They find money for everyone except for people in our own community. That is frustrating, and we have to speak up.
A society that does not invest in its young people betrays its young people.
Must not be sanctuaries, killers.
Killers.
Black kills a white, jail time. White kills a black is riot time. The 5 blacks were shot at Susquehanna last week. The white town was going up in smoke. The whites kill blacks, it's jail time. The whites is riot time. Blacks kill blacks middle of time. We must not accept killing of our people.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the Acting National Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, and this is State of the Movement. June is National Gun Violence Awareness Month, and Reverend Jesse Jackson has a long portfolio as it relates to fighting for gun legislation that would make our communities safer. And as we approach our 56th International Convention, we're launching a national agenda to address the crisis of gun violence that has our communities caught in the captivity of the cycle of victimization, trauma, and retaliatory generational violence. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for black children, largely because of the severe burden that gun homicides have on communities of color. Black Americans die from gun violence nearly 3 times more than our white counterparts. And on average, nearly 13,000 black Americans die every year from gun violence. Nearly all forms of gun violence have seen an uptick as it relates to homicides, injuries, and the perils in the past 25 years. Look at firearm homicides that have rose 61% in the past 5 years. So when those on the right and those in the middle believe doing more is less than protecting the Second Amendment, and then they use means of weaponizing misinformation to keep us divided, to keep us delusional, and keep us from making decisions that save lives, they need to know 83% of all gun deaths among black Americans are gun homicides. And as we work all over America to raise and save young black boys and challenge them to be the exception and not the average, black boys and black men account for 6% of the total population, yet they comprise more than half of all homicide victims. Black women are vulnerable and victims as well. And we've seen an uptick in the past years of 78% of homicides amongst black women and black girls in the past 10 years. The crisis of gun violence is heightened even more as we continue to address the inequities in our criminal justice system. More than 1 in 4 fatal police shootings involve a black victim. And when compared to all other racial and ethnic groups, black Americans experience the highest rate of fatal police shootings. Police fatally shoot more African Americans at 3 times the rate than they do white Americans. One study even showed that black Americans are just as likely to be shot and killed by a law enforcement officer if they were unarmed as if whites who are armed. Homicides have been the leading cause of death in the black community for ages 15 to 54. And so when we look at this agenda and we lay out this national plan to save lives and bring about a sense of responsibility in communities of color all over America, the Rainbow Push Coalition 56th Annual International Convention is going to be in the forefront, leading the cause and leading the challenge to save these communities. We're going to lay out a national agenda for tighter gun control policies, federal, state, and local. We're going to challenge elected officials and policymakers to ramp up investments for strategies that de-escalate and stop future violence. You know, cities, states, and federal government should invest in promising community violence intervention strategies and dedicate funding for long-term eradication of these ills, like investing in street outreach and violence interruption programs, hospital-based violence intervention programs, where individuals in high-risk areas get the critical information, critical engagement, and critical care right on the spot. Changing environmental conditions that facilitate community violence, like addressing the plight of migrants and the unhoused, increasing youth employment, eradicating food deserts, expanding mental health care, and rebuilding historically black communities. There's a robust body of research that is changing and challenging us to face these conditions and do something now. Investing in public dollars and public joint ventures for violence intervention and bringing about the necessary emotional support for survivors of trauma and gun violence. Dealing with the acute stress and the post-traumatic stress disorder, and creating community-based self-care support coping systems, along with helping families, last but not least, navigate the criminal justice system. You know, many survivors have never experienced the criminal justice system, and they have to learn on the go that this legal process is long and arduous. We believe at the Rainbow Push Coalition, it is our core responsibility. It's in our DNA. It's what we've been called to do, to fight this fight, to save and raise our children and help us keep hope alive. This is Bishop Tavis Grant, and this is State of the Movement.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
It's summer camp time. Get excited, young people, families, everybody, right here in the Chicagoland area. We're inviting you to Push Excel to be a part of our fun summer camp. Now, this is not only just fun, it's not only just culture, it's not only just academics, but this is a STEM camp. So we want you all to come out, get excited about this STEM and sports camp. Yes, we do it every year, but this year we put a twist on it. So we have a 3-week workshop. This is a 3-week workshop camp that will run Monday through Friday, and it's gonna run from the dates of July 12th through July 30th. All day for 3 weeks, your child will be a part of workshops that include sports, from soccer to lacrosse workshops. They're gonna learn how to model. They're going to learn how to do arts activities, arts in motion, arts in music, painting. So this is a customized sports camp. And then there's a STEM City. They're gonna be able to get a part of, do some of our virtual activities, our music and our virtual STEM activities. So this is going to be a workshop camp that you do not want to miss. Please stay tuned and go to the website at www.pushexcel.org to be a part of that special 3-week summer workshop camp. Then you can also participate in our normal 6-week camp. Now, this is a 3-day camp. This camp will run on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And we want all of our young people to participate. Your families that do not have something going on in those days, we don't want you sitting around the house. We don't want you being bored. We want you to come and be a part of STEM City. We want you to be a part of these sports and these field trips and these activities that we have planned this summer. That camp is gonna run from July 7th all the way through the end of the summer, which is August 11th. So come be a part, join us at www.pushexcel.org, register your child, or you can even stop by to Rainbow Push to register your child for the summer camp. We're gonna have lots of fun. You don't wanna miss it.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the Acting National Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, and I want to thank you for helping us keep hope alive. You know, right here in Chicago, in just a few weeks, July 15th through the 19th, the most incredible convention in civil rights, the Rainbow Push Annual 56th International Convention, held right here in the great city of Chicago. We have a wide array of activities that we want you to be a part of, and you go to www.rainbowpush.org or any of our social media platforms and become engaged, involved, and enlisted in the fastest growing social justice army on the planet. That Saturday is going to be a reunion of the 88 campaign, the 35th anniversary of Reverend Jesse Jackson's 88 presidential run. Campaign workers and volunteers and staffers and those that manage that campaign will be converging on the city of Chicago as elected officials and policymakers and stakeholders will be coming from around the nation to converge on Chicago as we kick off that grand day, July 15th. On the 16th, at the Apostolic Church, Dr. Byron Brazier, we're going to host our Dr. Clay Evans Gospel Concert, and the talent is going to be second to none, and it's absolutely free. Starting on that Monday, that Tuesday, and that Friday, we'll be at the incredible Rubenstein Forum on the campus of the University of Chicago. We're talking about sessions and plenary sessions and engagement and panels and meal events, all that can be found and discovered at www.rainbowpush.org. Let me tell you something, this is a convention you don't want to miss and you want to be a part of. So go to that site right now, register, get involved, and I'll see you at the 56th Annual International Rainbow Push Convention, Chicago. Here we come.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of two words: social justice.
Education advocacy.
Political empowerment.
Freedom and equality.
Global humanitarian.
Evolutionary, revolutionary.
Political change.
Inclusion, evolution. Push Excel.
Progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope, keep on alive. Keep hope, keep on alive.
Love for disciplines.
Equality and perseverance.
Corporate partnership.
People united.
Push yes.
I'm Otis Moss III.
I'm Frederick Douglass Haynes III.
And we are here simply just to say to you about an incredible organization known as Operation Push.
Can I be admitted? No, sir, you cannot be admitted. Why? I am not going to serve you. Because of my race?
Operation Push has been here for us even when we didn't know it. As a matter of fact, a lot of the doors that you walk through is because of the fact that somebody knocked those doors down.
I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
And because of Operation Push, when it started as Operation Breadbasket, after the assassination of Dr. King, they decided to build an organization that were people united to save humanity.
Just what is Operation Push?
Well, Operation Push is a civil economics organization. It's a religious organization with an economic mission. And we believe that the black church is the political and spiritual salvation of our people. And it is to that extent that we challenge churches and churchmen to get involved.
And so we are simply asking those who have been blessed by Push to join the movement.
That's right. And if you do that, I promise you, you are blessing the next generation. And that's what we need, generationally, to bless those who come behind us, just as those before us made sure that we could have what we have. That's Operation Push, pushing doors open. But we can't push if we don't have your hand involved.
We want to turn on the gas. We want to turn on the water. We want to sell the clothes. We want to sell the cars. We want to be men. We want self-determination.
And it was Jesse Jackson who was the young man of the movement and now is an elder statesman. And we've got to make sure that we have another generation that will be pushing forward, another generation that will be building an Operation Breadbasket, another generation that will be talking about new economic strategies for those who are poor.
And ensuring that we are never politically disenfranchised. I hope you already recognize that there is a movement afoot to rob us of what we fought so hard for and shed blood for, and that is the right to express our voice through voting.
If blacks vote in great numbers, progressive whites win. It's the only way progressive whites win. If blacks vote in great numbers, Hispanics win. When blacks, Hispanics, and progressive whites vote, women win. When women win, children win. When women and children win, workers win. We must all come up together. We must come up together.
We need you in Rainbow Push to make sure we are politically empowered and enfranchised.
There is no other organization like Rainbow Push, and we encourage you to make sure that you join and financially support. If we don't support it, no other organization will. It is our duty, it is our job to support our organizations.
We got to do it. Grassroots organization, hitting the streets and challenging those in the suites. That's Operation Push.
I like that. I'm Reverend Otis Moss III.
Hey, I'm Frederick D. Haynes III. He's rubbing off on me.
Make sure you join Operation Push, Rainbow Push, today.
Keep hope alive.
Join us at Rainbow Push this summer from July 15th through the 19th for our international convention. We will be touching on issues like the anniversary of the 69 years of Brown versus Board of Education. Now, let's take a listen at the conversation that Dr. Sonia Whitaker and Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson had with scholars regarding education and equality in the educational space.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us here this morning. We'd like to thank you so much for giving of your gift of time. We are excited to share that once again, Push Excel is continuing the work that we are doing relevant to the launching of our critical thinking series entitled Shaping America's Education Agenda. On this day, the focus of our particular event is really on 69 years after Brown versus Board of Education. I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself as Dr. Sonia Whitaker, the National Education Policy Director for Push Excel, and to take this brief moment to allow my distinguished panelists to introduce themselves to you and to share a little bit about the role that they play in their respective organizations. And we will start with the president of Push Excel, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. Good morning, Dr. Malveaux.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. And thank you, colleagues, for assembling to talk about Brown. I am an economist, author, President Emerita of Bennett College for Women in Greensboro, North Carolina. Additionally, the Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, where, as you know, 22 states have now weighed in against our very existence. They do not want ethnic studies taught. They do not want critical race theory taught, but we teach it and we do it. I am also, of course, an activist. I could talk about myself all day, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to say is that the meaning and the purpose of this conversation today is to look at Brown as a chink in the armor of segregation. It's simply a chink in the armor. We haven't fixed segregation yet. We haven't fixed racism yet. The fact is that Brown was one step. After Brown, what we saw was legal intransience, racial attitudes. We saw people saying, no, we won't. And our response is, in the words of our great President Barack Obama, yes, we can. And so what we can do is to stay on the footpath of Brown to ensure that every young person has access to a quality education. And that's why we do Push Excel.
Thank you so very much. Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, could you introduce yourself and the role you play within our respective organizations?
I'm glad to be the National Executive Director of Push for Excellence. I started with Push back in the 80s as local legal counsel for Reverend Jackson and for Rainbow Push, or at that time it was Operation Push. Now I became the Executive Director of the Push International Trade Bureau, and then later, where I am now, I was National Executive Director of Operation Push when Reverend Jackson ran for president in 84 and 88, and a Jackson alternate delegate in 88. And now I'm the National Executive Director of Push for Excellence. And I serve at the pleasure of Dr. Julianne Malveaux at the Board of Trustees. And I am too an activist.
Very good. Thank you so much. Dr. Karat.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with this amazing group. I'm a huge proponent of everyone on the panel and a huge supporter of Push Excellence. It's really pushing me to continue to do the great work we're doing in Peoria, Central Illinois. I'm superintendent there. We have 13,000 kids and 27 schools. The majority of them are Black and Brown kids from marginalized communities. So we are, yes, race, place, and income. It does continue. We have a long, long way to go. It does continue to play a role in access to quality education for our kids. And we're all part of the solution. We're all responsible for solving this because our kids all deserve a chance for high expectation and strong instruction. So I'm just really happy to be part of this discussion. I'll focus a lot on solutions and some of the things that we're doing in my district as it relates to reimagining the work, and I'll share some of that. I'm excited about the upcoming school year and opportunities for our kids. We're seeing some improvement, but I'm one of those leaders, and I know we'll probably touch on that, but I'm one of those leaders. I'm sick and tired of where we are, and I'm like, this is not acceptable. Let's think outside the box and try this and try that, and we're pushing, and that's what we're doing in Peoria.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Rufus Williams.
Good morning to this distinguished group that you've assembled. I am a public school student. I went through public schools my entire life here in Chicago. went to college at a public university as well, an HBCU, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Happy to have come back and done a number of things here with the profession, beginning as a CPA, but also ultimately became the president of the Board of Education for the city of Chicago, the third largest school district in the nation. In doing so, I was somewhat startled by the fact of the population, the number of students in our schools versus the number of people in our city. Then looking at the demographics of that, seeing how few white students and how few Asian students were in our schools versus the number that were in our city. And really looking and understanding the 69th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education, thinking about what was meant when it was passed, the idea that our children could actually do better if we had similar resources to white children, and recognizing that here we are now in 2023, 69 years later, and seeing that we not only have, we don't no longer have segregated schools, we have segregated school systems, and looking at where our children are and how far the difference continues to be between them is really one that continues to be of concern as it was when I headed up our schools. On the other side, I'm also a radio talk show host. I host WVON every morning from 6 to 9 a.m. So we have the opportunity to talk to a number of people and talk about a number of issues all across the country, of which education still remains the core issue, I think, for all of us, because it is the bridge that gets us out of poverty and on to the next things. And so this really emphasis on having resources, having adequate resources, having resources that allows us to truly compete has been one that has been daunting since Brown was passed on May 17th of 1950.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. And Dr. Ackerman.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of such a distinguished group of people. I am a retired K-12 educator. I spent 35 years in public education as a teacher, as a principal, as a curriculum director. And so I have certainly had the opportunity not only to work in inner city, but to work in affluent suburbs as well. This, however, is my 23rd year of retirement. And since I have been retired, I have been involved in a number of activities that began when I was working. I had the honor of serving as the 8th president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, which I am here representing today. Having been the 8th president, the second woman to serve in that capacity, I have continued to be involved in NAVSE since my very first meeting in 1977. Currently, I am serving as the chair of the Legislative Priorities Committee. And so some of the legislative attacks that are occurring as it relates to public education are of great concern to me. I've also had, of course, the opportunity to serve as a university trustee at a public university, my own undergraduate alma mater, Ohio University. Had the opportunity to serve statewide as a member of the Ohio Board of Regents. And so education is sort of what I do. And because I don't have sense enough to just go home and sit, I stay involved in all of these things that matter. I was a little girl in elementary school when Brown versus the Board was passed. And so I have lived this 69 years and then some, and have lived it from a variety of different perspectives. So I look forward to the discussion we're going to have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to start out by asking Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, can you talk with us about Brown versus Board of Education from a legal perspective and historical perspective?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for convening this panel. I think that we have misinterpreted Brown across the years. Many people believe that Brown was decided so that we might desegregate the schools and to integrate them and make sure that our students would attend school with children of other races. The real fundamental premise of Brown was that we had to desegregate the resources of the school systems where Black children found themselves, because it did not make sense for Linda Brown to go across the railroad tracks to a school that had better books, better teachers, better resources, academic resources, than to simply just have them at her school. And so this whole idea of the later years after 1954, we got into the whole busing issue, because basically the majority schools, the white schools did not want Black children bused to them. They did not want to integrate the schools, nor did they want to have separate and equal institutions. They were very comfortable having Black schools have books that were outdated and had been abused by the majority schools, just send them to the Black children. So when Thurgood Marshall, Attorney Thurgood Marshall and his team, they came up with this whole legal theory that talked about what happens when schools do not have, students do not have the benefit, the cultural exchanges, the benefit of understanding different cultures and different races, in as much as those existed in America. And they talked about the trauma that it had on children of color in particular, how we were being indoctrinated a certain kind of way. And then after the 1954 decision, there became this whole move to desegregate the schools and move the children to better school systems, better school districts, better school buildings, where they didn't have to desegregate the resources. They never wanted to desegregate the resources and allocate the appropriate resources, the equal resources, to the schools that were predominantly Black. And so what you have today is pretty much what we had 69 years ago. We have Black schools. We have the right to go to other schools, but they're not in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood schools, and Rufus Williams, who I used to work for at CPS, he knows full well how our schools in the inner city neighborhoods that were Black and brown, we had different access to materials, to books. They were not as up to date. Our laboratories have not been invested in years. If you look at, until they build new schools, you have schools that are high schools that are predominantly African American. They don't have the same resources allocated, funds to them. And we also discovered after Brown had been decided that the schools were funded based on class, not just race. And so students who attend schools in more affluent school districts like Barrington and Neuqua Valley, they have greater resources allocated per student. The teachers get paid more per student. You know that, Dr. Whitaker, because you worked in a majority school district.
Reverend Wilson, I think one of the things that we have to deal with, and forgive my interruption, but we have to deal with also the issue of Brown too, because Brown itself said separate, whatever it said. You're the lawyer, I'm not. But basically, after that, Brown too said with all deliberate speed, which means take your own sweet time. So I ended up, because I got put out of too many schools in San Francisco, I ended up in Moss Point, Mississippi. Please don't, my mama just sent me there because she couldn't deal with me.
I understand.
That's not nice. But, I had an auntie who was, she died in 2000 at 101 years old. So she had been through all of this, just like Dr. Ackerman. She's seen everything. The year that I went down there, 1969, as opposed to integrating the schools, they sent the Black teachers to the white schools and the white teachers to the Black schools. And that was called integration. And meanwhile, this means everybody had educational disruption, because how do you send, I don't do K through 12, y'all, I stay away from K through 12, but how do you have different rotating teachers on different days to equalize access to teachers without providing access to students. So I went to Magnolia High School, which was a black high school. Moss Point High School was a white high school. And there was a significant difference in what was available to students, including books we got that said the N-word in them, that had pages torn out, whatever. Praise the Lord, they let me go to college after the 11th grade. Otherwise, I'd still be in trade school. But the bottom line here is that people play games with our education. If you look at Virginia and the Johns case, played games with our education because 1840, North Carolina, to teach a slave to read is to excite dissatisfaction to the detriment of the general population. That was a law in North Carolina. To take that law further, it said that if a white person taught a black person to read, they could be fined up to $500, which today would be about 50 grand, or flogged. But if a black person taught a black person to read, they could lose their freedom. So our education is central to our freedom. And that's the thing that we have to own, When people do not vote, they yield the right to have a say in their education.
I'm wanting to focus on the fact that despite that lack of resources, we are people who make a way out of no way. And when we think about the number of people that have been educated because there were people who were willing to make a way out of no way to make sure that Black children got educated. Yes. I don't want us to lose sight of who we are as a people, because going forward, it is that kind of commitment that we have as a people that allow us to overcome the effects of something that happened that we thought was permanent when it was really temporary.
Remember Plessy versus Ferguson, where we were separated and it was equal. And I'm in Peoria, Illinois, Central Illinois. We are very, very, very segregated by design. I mean, I am the urban school, I'm in the city of Peoria, and then the county. Peoria County has 20 school districts. We're the largest school district. And so people just flock and they get to choose, and it's the most segregated school district, one of the most segregated school districts. So Dr. Ackerman was going, it's like, okay, so what are we going to do about this, right? Because it's our status and our condition for the kids, right? It needs significant improvement. So that's where the leadership comes into play. And, we have the teacher shortage. There's so many challenges that we're experiencing. I mean, even right now, Pierre Public Schools, trying to diversify my teaching staff. When I came in 2015, I'm going on my 9th year as superintendent of Pierre Public Schools. When I came in, we had 108 vacancies, right? So what I ended up doing, because I said I'm going to talk about solutions, is we wrote the federal government, fill an application, became a J1 visa sponsor school district, and we can bring in 125 teachers internationally. It's for some people, it's not a popular idea, but it's definitely a temporary fix for 5 years. And so I have teachers from the Philippines, and I have teachers from Nigeria, from Jamaica, a whole bunch of teachers from Africa. And so for us, it's, teaching the whole child. We're talking about retaining, recruiting, qualified and attracting qualified staff, people who love our kids, people who are going to move them, and they're going to provide them with strong instruction, whether it's mathematics. Here's another thing. When I came in, we had my schools on the south side of Peoria, which is our low-income, marginalized, disinvested communities. Those kids in middle school did not have access to algebra. Now, I have some middle schools where those 8th graders, those 7th graders, 6th graders, they not only do they have algebra, they have geometry. So I'm like, okay, let's look at this. So somebody talked about equity. It was so bad. And every year I'm like, okay, here it is. What are we going to do? They're not ready. They're not ready. You know what we're going to do this year, 23, 24? All of the 8th graders are going to have algebra. We have a plan for it, and they're going to be exposed to it. And there's so many advantages. So we have to be bold, and we got to take that agenda and push it and go for what we want, go for what we think our kids deserve.
Dr. Ackerman made notion of a point that we really need to own. And on all she said, what she told us is that we have to be woke. And when we start to really think about what some of the knowledge, some of the conversation is now about anti-wokeness, what you explained, Dr. Ackerman, is that we need to be woke, we need to be awake, and we need to know and be engaged and involved about what all these things are. The advocacy at the state level is really important. We pushed a lot and pushed hard when we got President Obama in the White House and thought, we good. Except the fact of the matter is they were really pushing hard on all these state legislatures, and we're seeing the impact of that now throughout this country. And unless we pay particular attention, and Dr. Malveaux noted very early in this conversation about voting, unless we pay very particular attention about those things, we'll find ourselves consistently behind.
Yeah.
We'll go back and just touch on teachers and getting more teachers, and particularly getting more Black male teachers. I think we talk about this as a teacher, but we don't talk about it as a profession. And the profession leads you up the chain to where you all can be, to where you all got to, who are here on this call. But when we talk about teacher, you only see it in a classroom. When you talk about the profession, then you see the ways in which you've really moved this thing, and we have to look at it in that way. It's not something, and being the only Black male on this call, I never considered it. It may have been what Brown opened up for all of us, so we had opportunities to do a lot of other things. But if we think about it as a profession, and we are really particular about what we're trying to do, the University of Illinois at Chicago has a very particular program to get Black males into the education field. Teach for America was very good in drawing people in and saying, this is a start. You go into a classroom for 2 years, but you stay somewhere in education. And I think a number of our other organizations can do a lot more with really being very specific about going to young Black men and talking to them about the profession of education and what that means. And then if we're deliberate in what we're trying to do, then we'll see the outcomes that we're seeking.
Teachers used to be the most revered people in our communities, and we have to restore that. I'm also, among the other things I do, vice chair of the board of the Economic Policy Institute, which studies wages. And what we know about wages is that relative teacher wages have declined. That if we look at it in terms of inflation adjusted, teacher wages have declined. So teachers were once the most valued people in our communities, and now they are among the least. There has to be a movement, not only to lift up our teachers, but to lift up education. And those of us who are educators and who care about this, if we don't do it, we're dropping the ball. And so my passion is about making sure that anyone who wants to be educated has that opportunity, and anybody who doesn't has that forced opportunity. Ignorance is ignorance just doesn't work. And education is the antidote to ignorance. So what do? Everybody, every day, ask yourself, what are you doing? Are you writing a legislator? Are you calling somebody? Are you voting? Are you going to the school and volunteering? It's not a one-man band. All of us can make a difference.
Very good. Wow, that was powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Malveaux and Dr. Jeanette Wilson.
Well, Dr. Malveaux said much of what I would have said if she had let me. I just want you to do that. But one of the things that I think Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Malveaux in particular, our convention this year is a call to educators. It's time for you to join us at the convention. This has been 90 minutes of just exposing some of the issues. We must come together, not only wrestle with it, but leave the convention on July the 17th, which is Education Day, with a plan to restore and to restore the energy that Dr. Malveaux is talking about, but we are fighting as a collective. Every parent needs to be involved, parents need to be involved, teachers need to be involved, all of the people that work in schools need to be involved. Community leaders need to be involved. We've got to deal with 69 years after Brown. Our schools are more segregated than ever before. We have fewer African-American teachers than ever before. We have a system that is still intentionally segregated by resources. There's less technology in our African-American schools than ever before. Our teacher training is not at the level that it should be. And so we have to come together and start planning our action, because in 2024, we have a presidential election. Every state legislator will be up for re-election or election in 2024. We must be prepared for the fight is coming, and we must marshal our efforts. You know, advocacy is now, it's not then, it's now. 69 years later, the fight continues for a high quality public education for every child. So join us at the Rainbow Push Convention in July 15th through the 19th. Education Day, if you can only come one day, but July the 17th. And we'll be at the Rubenstein building on the campus of the University of Chicago.
Thank you so very much to my esteemed panelists. In closing, we want to thank you for tuning into this critical thinking discussion focused on 69 years after Brown versus Board of Education. We hope to have raised your consciousness around this topic, and equally important, provided for you recommendations that can be implemented in your respective organization as soon as yesterday. As Reverend Dr. Jeanette has indicated, the Rainbow Push Coalition is once again hosting our annual conference. Please visit rainbowpush.org to reserve your seat at the place. Now, whatever you do, do not move, do not touch that dial. We'll be right back, because the push is on.
We're excited to get more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. Now, if you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those who are incarcerated, you can do so. If you're interested in impacting public policies that benefit education and businesses with social economic solutions, you can do that as well. You can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. Now, if you believe in the scholarships that we've given to thousands of students each year, you can help us out. We've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships year to date. Now, you can help young people achieve a higher education by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now for the annual fee of only $35. And if you're a student or a senior, it's only $15. You can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. Now, if you watch us every week, or if you listen to us on the radio, or if you're viewing on social media, we need you to become a member. And how do you become a member? It's simple. Visit us at rainbowpush.org and press join. Maybe you'd like to support the work of Push. If so, it's really simple. You can do so by texting the word PUSH, that's P-U-S-H, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. So whenever you want to support, you can do it from anywhere. So keep pushing, because we're going to keep pushing for you and keep hope alive.
Listen, I want to thank you for your time and your participation and your engagement with us. Every Saturday, we bring this to you on this network and on all of our platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We're constantly bringing information and engagement to you, because this is how we win. If we don't fight, we lose. And when we fight, we win. It's been the legacy and leadership of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson to bring this content and engagement to you, but it does not come without a cost. And I want to encourage you, as we are responding to students who are graduating, as we're responding to migrants, as we're responding to the unhoused, the unemployed, the uninsured, The fight is on, and we need your help. Your contribution today by texting the word PUSH to 41444 or going to any one of the platforms at the bottom of the screen would afford our national staff, our workers, our supporters, our volunteers to stay on the front lines. Right here at Dr. King's workshop, we work 7 days a week, literally, responding to the cause and the challenge of keeping hope alive. And your contribution as a member, $35, or those of you who contribute, and I want to thank you personally for doing what I do, contributing on a weekly basis, $100, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 that you give to help support this work. When we send resources to the unhoused, when we provide resources to migrants, when we respond nationally and internationally to a crisis, we take you with us, and you afford us to do this work that's oftentimes unsung and unseen. But guess what? Your contribution right now, you can go to that mobile device right now and you can text the word PUSH to 41444, or you go to www.rainbowpush.org and hit the membership tab, or better yet, get a membership for somebody you know that needs it. As Reverend Willie Barrow would say, you need to support PUSH before you need PUSH to support you. So hey, I want to thank you in advance for helping Reverend Jesse Jackson keep hope alive.
We are sanctuary. We are a sanctuary.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of two words: social justice.
Education advocacy.
Political empowerment.
Freedom and equality.
Corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children. Don't get in. Shut it down. If we don't get in, shut it down.
Political change.
Inclusion, evolution.
Progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive. Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
We're going forward. By hope. Not backwards. By fear.